It's not a gift, man. It's a trust. It's a community ideal. To be able to put people in a room, let's talk about some of the most difficult of things, painful, hurtful things, but yet congeal an environment where our people can see their own humanity, show compassion, and show mercy. Civil liberties attorney Clarence Darrow also said when it came to humor, if you lose the power to laugh, you lose the power to think. With that, I present the End of Racism Comedy Lecture Tour Virtual Edition.
I think racism is the reason why you never ever see any black people in tanning commercials. You're laughing, but if you went to the local pharmacy, you saw a cardboard cutout of me with some suntan lotion, you'd be confused. It's a killer. They don't tell you this. It affects everybody. Guess what? Racism affects white people too. But they don't tell you. That's why I'm here. Work with me here. Black people got Black History Month. I'm Muslim. Muslims have Ramadan. Latinos have Latino month. Asian month. What do my white brothers and sisters have? Nothing. You don't have a Caucasian Awareness Month or Black Appreciation Day or a White Day or a Southern Day or a Richard Month or Hopefully You Wake Up a Pale Pose. Nothing. Put out your right hand. Extend 5 fingers. I call this the fives. It's about thinking about language. Freedom. I believe there's always 5 letters to let us know just how close we are. 5 letters. Think outside the box. Here we go. You can count on for more. 5 letters. I believe we all exist, EXIST, here on Earth, 5 letters by virtue of the fact we're all human nature when they end. Therefore, it doesn't matter whether you're black 5 letters, white 5 letters, Asian 5 letters, or Latino, I like the older A still ain't true. I'm Muslim, that means I follow Islam, that's 5 letters. If you Christian, follow Jesus. If you're Jewish, you get the Torah, 5 letters too. The point of this is, as good as the sound is always going to be head, and it's 5 letters too. Because our power lies in our unity, U-N-I-T-Y. And a hater, you know how a hater is. Most of them are angry, some of them are upset, some of them pissed off right now because damn it, they can't S-P-E-L-L, and it's okay. Tell a hater, listen man, if you can't spell it out, do the math. If you take 3 things away from the 5, it gives you peace. And that peace is spelled P-E-A-C-E.
I proudly present the End of Racism Comedy Lecture Tour Virtual Edition, coming to a college near you. Hey everybody, Assalamu alaikum. Hope you're having a wonderful day. Make sure that you hit the subscribe button and the notify button so you'll know when you're getting new episodes. And we just want to grow this project. I thank you in advance. Without further ado, let's get it rolling. The ShOUT Show. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everybody. I'm Preacher Moss, host of the SOS, the ShOUT Show. I hope you're having an amazing Thursday. There's only one more day till Friday. But even when we say that, thank God it's Friday and things like that. I think it's really, really important to understand your process, what you've done to get from Monday to Thursday to get to Friday, and how much of an accomplishment that is. And I have to say that because for myself, a lot of times as a comedian, your day or your week really starts on Wednesday. You perform Thursday, Friday, Saturday, sometimes Sunday. With fundraisers, it's getting there on a Friday or getting there on a Saturday and coming home on Sunday. But I want to give a shout out to everybody who gets up and they grind Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Because you know the work never stops. The work never ends. Just because you stop working on Friday doesn't mean that the work goes away. It means that it will be waiting for you on Monday or whenever you return to work. Just like our problems sometimes. Sometimes we drop our problems, not understanding that wherever we go, there's going to be a potential or reality that we have to pick up our problems. We have to deal with them. So today's Thursday, Throwback Thursday, is going to be a little bit different. So let me tell you why. Because we're going to continue the conversation we had with our series, Powertics. I said we're getting away from politics, we're getting into Powertics. Powertics is like empower ticks, if you will, and discussing some of the things that permeate our whole life. A lot of us have to realize that this whole idea of politics has been with us our whole life. We just have to figure out how to frame it. So today on Throwback Thursday, I thought politics would be important, and a great topic to discuss today would be about overcoming our fears. Now, I'm not talking about being afraid of somebody. I'm talking about the fears, the things that cause a general hesitation, a pause, an anxiety, and I want to say a general impediment to our own human development, whether it be love, whether it be education, whether it be socializing, whether it be religion. What is that thing, that fear, that overarching fear that affects us being the best that we can be? So I'm going to throw this out here a little bit. And I just got a text from Phil Abramoff. Okay, my MU grad. I hope he's doing well. Phil, thank you so much for reaching out. I thought about this a lot today. And it coincides with a book I finished reading. If you get a chance to read it, it's a book about Dapper Dan Made in Harlem. And I really like the book Dapper Dan Made in Harlem. And for those who don't know, Dapper Dan was a fashion. He's a fashion designer. He still lives up in Harlem, and he talks about his struggle, his struggles, his journey, if you will, from when he was a young kid in Harlem, going through everything from being a dice game guy, a card game guy, to being a heroin addict, a drug dealer, to going to jail, to trying to establish fashion. He loved clothes. We've talked about that before. He loved clothes. He wanted to clothe people, make them look good, create fashions that accented their own narratives. He did all this stuff. And then he lost it all. He used to make the Fendi bags and Gucci jackets for all of the rappers and the hustlers, and he lost it on copyright infringement to Fendi and Gucci and MCM and Louis Vuitton. And life comes around, and he winds up getting a partnership with Gucci. And they now have a spot up in Gucci, a really wonderful spot where he's able to do the things he wants to without having to worry about repercussions of copyright infringement, because they have a partnership. That said, though, the interesting thing that I liked about this book is that he was always in a space where he was having to overcome his fears. So before we get into that, I want to welcome anybody that's coming to the show for the first time. Enjoy the show, because I'm really, really excited about the new set we're trying to put up here. So make dua for me, inshallah. Anybody come on the show for this particular segment, you might want to watch the other segment that we did on Powertics. So this is a continuation. So a lot of the people that are here saw this spot on Powertics. I decided I would move it and I would make it, if you will, and add on or frame it in the way of Throwback Thursday. We are a product of our past. So anybody coming on, I want you to stay and enjoy the show. But if you get a chance, go check out yesterday's show where we introduced the idea of Powertics. That's number one. If you're also coming on the show, you are welcome. You are part of the ShOUT Show family, the ShOUT Show Sodas, which is a rare and beautiful collection of people. You never know who's going to drop through, but a rare collection and beautiful collection of people, thoughts, spirits, vibes, rhythms, and flows. And I'm glad anytime anybody comes on this show, I appreciate it. And you're more than welcome. And if you have something that you want to say or express, don't be shy. Put it in the comment section. We call that giving you your shout out. Now, for my stars in the building, those will be the people who come on the show all the time. I gotta love you up. I gotta love all of you up, and I'm gonna tell you why. We are fast approaching a record number of shows. But something happened last night when I sat back and I thought about it. And I said, you know what? This is a bit of history. This is a narrative that will grow, inshallah, on a positive side of things. What I'm about to say is this is important. We've had a flow, we've had a little bit of a movement, if you will, that's based upon the fact that we generally care about people. We care about each other. And so this collective, if you will, is an amazing thing, particularly during this time of COVID unemployment, that people figure out for this half hour, not so much me, but for the half hour that we get together and have a conversation, have a dialogue. Awesome. So let me shout out my stars in the building. Show dietitian Reed. Sister Reed, thank you so much, Sister Reed. That food was amazing. I could not eat it all yesterday, so I'll be on it today. That will be dinner 2 days in a row. Thank you very much. Shout out to Sister Sultana, who is studious and hardworking, and I tell everybody she's going to have her own show one day, and I'm going to produce it because I believe in a lot. I believe in a lot in people who are hardworking, but it's not just the specter of being hardworking. I always like the term, my brother used to say, Allah never wastes the work of a righteous worker. And I believe that she's a righteous worker, just like everyone else. The Shout Out Show has some righteous people. I believe it's more important to celebrate those folks, to celebrate them, to make sure they're okay. And of course, to grow the identity. So everybody on the show, I want you to feel free to grow that identity. Whatever it is, ideas that you may have, don't be shy, share them. My brother Altaf Rashid checking in all the way from Toronto, Canada. Brother, we really appreciate you, man. When I say appreciate, because I know people have places to go, but consistency. Success in this type of market is about consistency. Success during these particular times is about consistency. Where you go to get your information. Yesterday we talked about acquisition, where we acquire information, who we acquire information from, who we let in our spaces to inform us. It's really interesting thing. So this is a beautiful thought. Sister Aika coming all the way from Indonesia. I know she's just waking up off her Fajr game. Thank you so much for tuning in, Sister Aika. Peace and blessings to you, your family, your son, and your daughter. So let me get to this thing. Brothers and sisters, look at the title. Overcoming fears. And I'm going to tell you guys some of the things I had to overcome when I was younger. Because some of the things I had to overcome when I was younger was interesting because I had to make a decision about how I was going to address them. So hear me out. Overcoming fears and the idea of Powertics is interesting because I was forced to make decisions early because I was forced to go to school with white kids. It was doing busing and all those type of things. So you lose the veneer and the protection of having mostly African-American teachers. And I was dealing with white school, white teacher, white rules, white sensibilities. And the thing I had to overcome was that I became quiet. One of the most fearful times for me, brothers and sisters, was you had to read out loud. And let me give my brother a shout out. JT, talking about overcoming some fears. What's going on, beloved? One of the big fears I had to overcome when I was young, brothers and sisters, was reading out aloud. I didn't like to read out aloud. And here's the truth. I don't like to read out aloud now. Now, I know I don't like to read out aloud now because I like to just have my thoughts in my head. I have a rhythm for how I'm reading. I have my own pace. When I read, I just don't read. A lot of you, like me, you probably go back and reread, turn the page back. This was like forced public reading. It's like forced public. Like if it was like a slave market, they put a black person up there. He's a young, strong buck, strong black buck. And they said, plus he can read. Read for him, Lucas. And Lucas would read. I felt that way with white teachers. I did not like being put on display to read. Also, it felt uncomfortable with some of the other kids, particularly African-American kids, because we didn't necessarily, I want to say, levitate or gravitate to the whole idea of reading out loud. I like to read and be in my. I used to like to take notes when I was younger. But the other thing about me not liking to read in the first grade was the fact that my parents had moved from Southeast Washington to Prince George's County, Maryland. And the dilemma of us moving was the fact that I was caught in between grades. In DC, I was in kindergarten. Moving to Maryland, the option was either I go ahead and join a first grade class or sit out the year and redo kindergarten again. That was it. So my mother was like, "Don't worry about it. He'll figure it out." And so basically, I was a kindergartner in first grade. Figured that one out. So you figure about all the milestones, and so it was problematic. Plus, I was younger, so I didn't read as well as the other kids, and I had my own style of reading, which I said I didn't read as well as the other kids, and there was a fear of being judged, a huge fear of being judged, not just with the kids that you were reading, but also the teachers who were listening to you read, because if they didn't like the way you read, they put you in a lower group, and I hated that. Now you didn't want to read in the first place. Now you're with a group of kids that damn near can't read. Now you feel stupid and isolated. Overcoming my fear in that situation was the fact that this problem, if you will, I felt when I was very, very young, if I didn't make a strong representation of myself, let me explain this. A strong representation of myself was not reading to please the teacher. The strong representation of myself that I'm about to say was expressing to the teacher why I didn't like reading out loud. Telling the teacher, not only do I not like reading out loud, but you're causing anxiety with the other kids. And in doing that, I made myself vulnerable, extremely vulnerable. And in first grade, my teacher didn't like me. Let's just call it what it is. My teacher did not like me at all. And so we had this whole thing going on. But the way I learned to overcome this, brothers and sisters, was my grandmother. God bless her soul, may Allah be pleased with her. Isabella Moss. From a young age, she would make me read to my grandfather. And the idea of reading to my grandfather was the fact that I didn't understand this, and I don't know why she made me read to him until I got older. She made me read the newspaper to him, the Washington Post, because my grandfather was illiterate. And she, in her way, emphasized that if you don't learn how to read, you'll be in this situation. You love that man, but you don't want to be in his deficit situation. That's how she broke it down. If you love your grandfather, you will learn how to read. And in that, I said, we have to weigh options. We have to weigh options. And the option was looking at reading as a tipping point. Now, many of us deal with tipping points in our lives, right? One of the things I had to overcome also was the fact, and many of you may know this, I generally don't like crowds. I know I'm a comedian, blah, 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 done shows, but by nature, I'm an introvert. I'm an introvert. I have play brothers and play sisters, but I'm an only child. I'm an introvert. You learn systems of existing, how you acquire knowledge in this space, a very, very sacred space. And in that very, very sacred space, I was comfortable. But having to go out and do things and be in crowds and being called on and things like that really, really made me uncomfortable for most of my early life. I would say up to, I want to say seventh grade. Well, sixth grade, seventh grade. But seventh grade was, I could tell jokes. I could tell jokes. And telling jokes back then was a mechanism. It was a coping mechanism. It allowed people to overlook what I thought were my faults. I was small, had a big nose. I didn't, a girl I liked told me I wasn't cute. And I said, "What do you mean I'm not cute?" She said, "You ugly." I said, "Damn, that's pretty much it for cute." But it was also the thing that I felt that pushed in front of a group of people and having to do much like this public reading, that I make a fool of myself. I make a bad impression, and that impression will be the thing that sticks. So let's back up now. Overcoming fears is interesting. You know, in America, I'm sure around the world, there is a business of oppression. And hear me out. This is not a heavy thing. There's a business of oppression. And in that business of oppression, the contractors or the consultants to make sure that oppression stays in business are people called bullies. Now, the interesting thing about bullies, people think it's a physical bullying. No. Bullies frame environment. Bullies frame narrative. And I didn't really understand that when I was young. I felt like my teacher did something to me, but what she did to me was I felt like I was being bullied as a very, very young child. And overcoming that came in the person, of course, my mother and my father. But there was a teacher, you've heard me mention her name, God rest her soul, Miss Alvita Jones, my 6th grade teacher, who came to me when I was in 1st grade. And she told me in my ear, I know you know how to read. But she also said, I know you're younger than everybody else. And what she did for me, I'll never forget. She allowed me to take the textbook home and practice. She allowed me during recess to sit with her and practice, so that when it came time for me to do the reading, the fear was greatly reduced because it came with preparation. Let me say it again. It came with preparation. And preparation is one of the major things you can do to overcome your fears. These days, as we talk about Powertics, the art of the redo is over. You get one shot. It's probably not even a good shot, but you get one shot. Throwback Thursdays, I want you to remember when people gave you a chance to make a mistake and make a correction. Let me say it again. People gave you a chance to make a mistake and make a correction. Okay, so why is this important? Because the idea of failure not being a one and done, not being an abyss to being inferior, but a place where you could practice and make mistakes and learn from your mistakes. Today they call it, safe zones, where you can feel safe to make mistakes. We didn't have that back then. Not so much in education, but you also had it in your family. So part of Throwback Thursdays, looking at Powertics, is who were the people that inspired Powertics in your family? Let me give you a breakdown on my father's side of the family. My father and my aunt were the only ones that went to school. My Aunt Ruth worked. My Aunt May worked. My Aunt didn't work. My Aunt Dottie went to school. She got her degree. She actually got a PhD. She's Dr. Moss. And then there was my dad who went to the service and then came back and got his degree. You flip it over my mother's side of the family. My mother went to Howard University. Well, let's say my uncles didn't go to school. My one uncle was a truck driver. The other uncle did construction. My aunt, Maxine, went to Howard University, Howard Law School. My mother went to Howard University, got her law degree at Catholic University. Here's the thing on my mother's side you have to know. They had to overcome a whole lot. My grandmother Gladys died when my mom was about maybe 13. And I'm not afraid to put it out there. My grandfather, Bethel, I forget, he was probably dating women that were just a little bit older than my mom at that time once his wife passed away. So my aunt and my aunt and my mother weren't major concerns, if you will. And so they had to raise themselves, and my uncles had to raise them. On my father's side, it was interesting because he was the oldest male. Um, but what was interesting was my father also found out that he had to get out of Washington, D.C. He had to get out of Washington, D.C. Now, what's interesting in the parallel of both of these situations with my mother and my father is I understood that in the location they were in, one of the biggest fears was you have to remove yourself from the location. You have to extract yourself from the environment to even sit back and look at what that environment is. A lot of times, some of the fears that we deal with, brothers and sisters, and I'm going to say this in the space of politics, is we have to be willing to pull ourselves out of situations. You have to extract yourself. There's a thing called all money ain't good money, or something like that. And sometimes we have to be willing to take the hit off a certain thing. It might be finances, but in the interstitial, what you're doing is setting yourself up for a bigger rebound. You're setting yourself up for a bigger purpose. You're setting yourself up for a grander picture of what you're going to need in your life moving forward. I shouted out Miss Jones. By the time I got to sixth grade, Miss Jones was time and a half for me. But I never forgot what that lady did for me. And it was a small thing. What she emphasized is that I could read. That was number one. What she emphasized when practicing, she said, you can read for your own enjoyment. You could also read to get better. And you could read to be prepared when you have to go out and deal with so-and-so. So my question today in terms of politics, overcoming fears, how are you preparing yourself to overcome fears? Sometimes, every once in a while, I have a big show. I'm getting older now. Sometimes I forget parts of my acts. But I rehearse them in the car. Or if somebody's driving me, I'll perform the show before the show. And I'll make sure that the timing is tight. And I'll make sure that I'm using the right words to elicit laughter and things like that. But it's so much about preparation, so much about your mental state moving forward. Think about that. You see, on Throwback Thursdays, what I remember in the old school days is if you were a good dancer, you know what the people in your neighborhood would say? Hey, everybody, come around. Hey, boy, show them that dance. It's ironic in the book by Dapper Dan, his original name was Dancing Danny. Dancing Danny. And he would dance for money, him and his brothers. And the guy saw him one time and was close. Said, no, you no longer Dapper Danny, you take my name. Yeah, you're not Dancing Danny, take my name. I'm Dapper, whatever. Now you're Dapper Dan. And it's interesting how the world shifts and the universe aligns for these wonderful things to happen. And I believe in my heart of hearts it can happen for every one of you. Yeah, I know some people looking at this going, oh, it's not funny. Some things just ain't funny. It's not sad, but it's just not funny. You know, when I talk to people, it's interesting how many people are really, really geared on an agenda where I'm supposed to make them laugh. Well, that's the easiest thing. But can I teach you anything? Hardest job in the world is teaching. The second hardest job in the world is listening. Listening. And I want to give a shout out to one of my heroes, a mentor. His name is Harry Weber. Harry Weber talked to me several years ago. He didn't have to. He's a legend. But he talked to me about people not being prepared to listen, and not being prepared to listen heightened anxiety and fears of everything that came their way. Everything that came their way. He said the fear of slaves back in the day was that when they spoke, Africa couldn't hear them because they weren't close enough to Africa. They knew that American society wasn't listening. But the genius and the miracle was They took ears and said, well, if we can't speak to people back in Africa, I can still speak to Africans. And in our language, our different dialects and things, we will figure out a language of freedom. We'll figure out a language of survival. And once we figure it out, we'll figure out this English language to make it work for us. I emphasize all this to say, prepare. Let me say it again, prepare. Overcoming fears is a major thing. And as we go through this concept of Powertics, it's overcoming fears, but you can do it if you prepare. And the best part about becoming an efficient listener is that you can become an efficient teacher. Meaning, the people you want to reach, you can educate up, you can teach them up. The thing about Throwback Thursdays is, and we may laugh about the customs, we may laugh about the cars, the afros, the music, the food. What I remember about Throwback Thursdays is those people were still close to that struggle of the 60s, still close and bearing the scars of the 50s and the 40s when they couldn't vote and there was segregation. And they still had the mindset, the genius, to understand that these people are not listening to me, but these people right here, if I can listen to them, I can teach them. And if I can teach them, it involves even another level of them listening. You know, I think one of the worst things that came out over the last couple of years, other than the smartphone, where everybody's on the phone, is the fact that people, dig this, people always have something in their ears. Can I say that again? People always have something in their ears. There's a whole business that's $1 billion business that's just about putting things over your ears. So you only hear what you're trying to listen to. They have things, silent mode thing, you put them over here, you can't hear anything. That's so unnatural. That's so unnatural. But it's $1 billion business. And here we're talking about preparation. How can you prepare if you can't hear what people are talking about? You can't hear different sounds. You can't hear different ideas. You know, see, Throwback Thursday was back when, remember somebody turned on the radio and the whole neighborhood heard it? Remember that? The whole neighborhood heard it. And what was interesting was it was in a festive type of deal. You didn't do it, brothers and sisters, during the week. You know, you did it on the weekend. But that music that we heard brought about conversation and community. So as I wrap up today, Throwback Thursdays talking about politics, overcoming fears. I'm going to ask everybody to emphasize in your life, your family life, your social life, your emotional life, your financial life. I'm going to emphasize, 1, a better scope of preparation. 2, becoming more adept and more efficient listeners. All right, everybody. You guys have been great. I'm going to bounce. God bless you. I'll see you next time. Preacher Moss, the ShOUT Show. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Hey everybody, this is your brother Preacher Moss. Listen, I hope that you enjoyed your ShOUT Show experience. We'll be back with the next show, the next ShOUT Show. Simple ask before you go, please help your brother out. Click that subscribe button, click that notify button, and I'll see you again on this side of the microphone. You probably wonder what that smell is. That's me. I smell good. And the reason I smell good is because I use oils from Throwback. So I'm not saying you can't smell good. I'm not even saying you stink. I'm saying you have the opportunity to smell exquisite. Check out Throwback.com for some of the best oils and scents in town.